The quiet hum of the UNS Titan's bridge was broken by a sharp beep from the communications console. Lieutenant Amy Parker looked up from her station, her fingers dancing across the controls as she tried to isolate the strange signal that had caught her attention. "Admiral Morrison, sir," she called out, her voice cutting through the usual bridge chatter. "I'm picking up something unusual on the long-range sensors." Admiral Jake Morrison turned from where he had been studying star charts with his tactical advisor, Commander Lisa Grant. Morrison was a tall man with graying hair at his temples, as a veteran of humanity's first deep space missions. His calm demeanor had seen the fleet through countless dangers in the unexplored regions beyond Earth's solar system. Morrison asked, walking over to Parker's station. Parker frowned at her screen, adjusting the filters to clean up the transmission. "It's not coming from any known human source, sir. The signal's weak, but it's definitely artificial. And sir, ... double quotes, she paused, double-checking her readings. It's being transmitted in Universal Standard." The bridge fell silent. Universal Standard was the common language that Earth scientists had developed for potential first contact situations. No alien species should know it, unless they had been monitoring human transmissions for years. "Put it on speakers," Morrison ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life with static. Then a voice emerged. It was clearly not human. The sounds were too sharp, too musical, with strange clicking noises between words. But the message was unmistakable. This is Elder Thal of Zalera Prime. Any who receive this message, please help us. Our world is dying. The Kreks have come. They burn our cities. They kill our people. We have little time left." The voice paused, filled with what sounded like exhaustion and despair. "We offer everything we know, all our knowledge of the stars and the worlds beyond, to any who will aid us. Our population is 2.8 billion souls. In 72 hours, we will all be dead unless someone comes. Please, if there is mercy in the galaxy, help us." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Commander Grant was the first to speak. "Admiral, that signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system. Our long-range sensors show it's about 48 hours away at maximum speed." Morrison nodded slowly, his mind already working through the implications. "What do we know about this Kreks they mentioned?" Grant pulled up data on her tablet. "Very little, sir. Our deep space probes have picked up fragments of communications from that region. The Kreks appear to be some kind of military force, possibly an empire. From what we can tell, they've been expanding across multiple star systems." Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson, the ship's sensor officer, looked up from his station. "Admiral, I'm detecting multiple energy signatures in the Kepler 442 system, large ones. Whatever's happening there, it's big." Morrison studied the star chart, calculating distances and travel times. The UN's Titan was humanity's most advanced exploration vessel, accompanied by 2 escort ships, the destroyer Uns Falcon, under Captain Ryan Walsh, and the heavy cruiser Uns Thunder commanded by Captain Nicole Stevens. Together, they represented humanity's farthest reach into space. "Sir," Captain Alex Turner spoke up from where he commanded the ship's marine complement. "If these Zalani are telling the truth, we're talking about nearly 3 billion lives." Dr. Kate Morgan, the fleet's lead scientist, had been listening. "Quietly, Admiral. This could be humanity's first real contact with an alien civilization. If the Zalani survive, the knowledge they're offering could advance our understanding of the galaxy by centuries." Morrison walked to the main view screen, staring out at the stars. Behind him, his senior staff waited for his decision. The weight of command had never felt heavier. Admiral Commander Grant said quietly, "We have to consider that this could be a trap. We know nothing about these aliens or their enemies." Parker's console beeped again. "Sir, the transmission is repeating, but the signal is getting weaker." Morrison closed his eyes for a moment, thinking of Earth, of humanity's long history of both helping others and being betrayed by trust. But he also thought of the voice in the transmission, the desperation, the plea for mercy in a galaxy that seemed to have little of it. Lieutenant Parker opened a channel to the Falcon and the Thunder. "Channel open, sir." "Captain Walsh, Captain Stevens, this is Admiral Morrison. Report to the Titan immediately for emergency briefing. We have a situation. Within an hour, the 3 ship commanders were gathered in the Titan's conference room. Morrison had explained the situation, played the alien transmission, and laid out what little intelligence they had. Captain Walsh, a younger officer with sharp eyes and quick reflexes, leaned forward. Admiral, if we're going to help these people, we need to move now. 48 hours travel time means we'll arrive with less than a day to spare. Captain Stevens, a veteran like Morrison with extensive combat experience, was more cautious. Sir, we're talking about 3 ships against an unknown enemy force. If this Krix Empire is as powerful as the transmission suggests, we could be flying into our own destruction. Adatasuto. Morrison looked around the table at his officers. Adatasuta, these were good people, brave people, who had volunteered for humanity's most dangerous missions. They had families back on Earth, lives they were risking for strangers they had never met. I won't order anyone to do this, Morrison said finally. This is beyond our original mission parameters. But I'm asking you, as fellow human beings, to help me save those people. The room was quiet for a long moment, and Captain Walsh spoke up. Admiral, my crew didn't sign up to explore empty space. We came out here to represent humanity. Among the stars, this is what that means. Captain Stevens nodded slowly. The thunder is ready, sir. Morrison felt a surge of pride in his officers, in humanity itself. Whatever waited for them in the Kepler 442 system, they would face it together. Very well. All ships, set course for Zalera Prime. Maximum speed. As the 3 human vessels changed course and accelerated toward the distant star system, none of them knew they were about to introduce the galaxy to something it had never seen before. Humans defending others. The Krix Empire was about to learn why Earth was classified as a death world, and why the species that evolved there were unlike anything the galaxy had ever produced. The 3 human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. What they found made every person on every bridge fall silent with horror. Zalera Prime hung in space like a wounded animal. The planet's blue-green. The surface was scarred with massive burn marks where orbital weapons had struck. Whole continents glowed red with fires that could be seen from space. The beautiful world that had once housed nearly 3 billion beings was dying before their eyes. My God, whispered Lieutenant Commander Pete Johnson from his sensor station. On the Titan. Admiral, I'm reading massive energy signatures throughout the system. There are ships everywhere. Admiral Morrison stared at the tactical display that Commander Grant had brought up on the main screen. Red dots filled the space around Zalera Prime, each one representing an enemy vessel. Morrison had seen large fleets before, but nothing like this. How many? He asked quietly. Johnson's voice was shaky as he replied. Over 200 ships, sir, and some of them are... ... He paused, checking his readings again. Admiral, their largest vessels are reading 3 times the size of the Titan. Captain Walsh's voice came over the communication channel from the Falcon. Admiral, are you seeing this? We're looking at an entire battle fleet, Captain Stevens added from the Thunder, sir. Our 3 ships against 200. This isn't a rescue mission anymore. This is suicide. Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. Saw fear there, but also determination. These were people who had volunteered to explore the unknown, to face whatever dangers waited among the stars. Lieutenant Parker, can you establish contact with the Zalani? Parker worked at her console for several minutes before nodding. I've got something, sir. It's weak, but there's definitely a signal coming from the planet's surface. Put it through. The voice that came through the speakers was the same musical tone they had heard in the distress call, but weaker now, filled with exhaustion and pain. This is Elder Thal, who... ... Who are you? Please tell me you are not more Kreks coming to finish what they started. Elder Thal. This is Admiral Morrison of the human fleet. We received your distress call. We're here to help. There was a long pause. Then what sounded like sobbing. You came. After everything, someone actually came. But you must leave immediately. The Krex fleet is too powerful. They have weapons that can destroy entire cities with single shots. Their ships are protected by energy shields that nothing can break through. Dr. Morgan stepped forward. Elder Thal, we need to know everything you can tell us about the Krex, their tactics, their technology, anything that might help us. The Krex are conquerors. Thal's voice was bitter. They have destroyed 17 worlds that we know of. They do not negotiate. They do not show mercy. They simply take what they want and kill anyone who resists. We are a peaceful people. We never developed weapons of war. We thought our knowledge and technology would be enough to defend ourselves. We were wrong. Commander Grant studied the tactical display. Elder Thal, can you tell us about their battle formations? How do they fight? They surround a world with their largest ships and bombard it until all resistance stops. Then they send smaller vessels to take whatever resources they want. Their fleet admiral, Zexkar, commands from a massive ship they call the Dominion's Fist. It is larger than anything we have ever seen. As if summoned by his name, a new voice suddenly filled the communication channels. Like it was deep and harsh, speaking in heavily accented universal standard. Attention unknown vessels. This is Fleet Admiral Zexkar of the Krex Empire. You have entered a war zone. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Morrison nodded to Lieutenant Parker, who opened a return channel. This is Admiral Morrison of the Human Fleet. We demand that you cease your attack on Zalera Prime and withdraw from this system immediately. The response was what could only be described as laughter, a harsh, grating sound that made everyone on the bridge wince. Humans? We have never heard of your species. Are you another weak race, come to beg for the lives of these pathetic Solani? Look around you, Admiral Morrison. You bring 3 small ships against the might of the Krex Empire. Your gesture is amusing, but pointless. On the main screen, the tactical display showed several of the largest enemy ships beginning to move toward the human fleet. They were massive, dark, angular vessels that looked like they had been built for one purpose: destruction. Captain Turner, who commanded the Titan's Marines, studied the enemy formations. Admiral, they're not even taking us seriously. At their approach pattern, they're moving in a straight line. No defensive formations, no tactical thinking. They're treating this like target practice. Morrison felt a cold anger building in his chest. These creatures had destroyed an entire world, killed billions of innocent people. And now they were laughing at humanity's attempt to help. Fleet Admiral Zexkar Morrison said into the communication channel, his voice steady and calm. You have 30 minutes to cease your attack on Zalera Prime and withdraw from this system. The alien's laughter grew louder. Or what? Human, you're 3 tiny ships will somehow defeat my entire fleet. This is the most entertaining thing to happen since we began our conquest of this worthless world. Very well, Admiral Morrison. I will give you the honor of dying quickly if you surrender now. If not, the transmission cut off. Commander Grant looked at the tactical display where the enemy ships continued their slow approach. Admiral, they're not even raising shields or preparing for battle. They think this will be easy. Morrison smiled grimly. Then they're about to learn something about humans that the galaxy doesn't know yet. He turned to address his bridge crew. All stations prepare for battle. Lieutenant Parker, send a message to the Falcon and Thunder. Execute attack pattern. Delta. Dr. Morgan looked confused. Admiral, what's attack pattern Delta? Captain Turner grinned, and for the first time since they had arrived in the system, there was real confidence in his expression. Something we developed during the war. Games back home, Doctor? The Krex are about to discover that humans don't fight fair? As the 3 human ships began to change formation and accelerate toward the massive enemy fleet, Elder Thal's voice came through the speakers one more time. Admiral Morrison, what are you doing? There are too many of them. You cannot win. Morrison's response was heard not just by the Zalani, but by every ship in the Krex fleet. Elder Thal, you're about to see why Earth is called a death world, and why the species that evolved there don't know how to quit. The battle for Zalera Prime was about to begin. The first Krex plasma beams lit up space like deadly lightning. Massive bolts of energy that could melt through solid metal streaked toward the 3 human ships. Fleet Admiral Zexkar watched from his command throne aboard the Dominion's Fist, expecting to see the tiny human vessels vaporized in seconds. Instead, something impossible happened. The human ships moved like living things. The Un's Titan rolled and twisted through space in ways that should have been impossible for something so large. The destroyer Falcon seemed to dance between the plasma beams, moving so fast it was almost a blur. The cruiser Thunder dove below. The line of fire, using the planet's gravity to slingshot around at incredible speed. "What are they doing?" Zexkar roared at his weapons officer. "How are they moving like that?" On the Titan's bridge, Admiral Morrison gripped his command chair as the ship spun through another impossible maneuver. "All fighters, launch now." The Titan's belly opened like a flower, releasing swarm after swarm of small fighter craft. The 400 human pilots screamed out into space, their ships so small and fast that the Krek's targeting systems couldn't lock onto them. Squadron leader Ben Clark led the charge, his fighter weaving between Krek's ships that were 100 times larger than his tiny craft. Behind him, his pilots followed patterns that seemed random, but were actually based on the flight paths of birds from Earth. Creatures that had learned to survive by never flying in straight lines. "This is insane," muttered one of Clark's pilots over the radio. "There are so many of them." "Remember your training?" Clark replied, spinning his fighter through a gap between two Krek's dreadnoughts. "We're not here to win pretty. We're here to win." The human fighters swarmed over the Krek ships like angry wasps. Their weapons were smaller than the aliens' massive plasma cannons, but they struck with surgical precision. While the Krek's weapons were designed to destroy entire cities, human weapons were built to find weak spots and exploit them. Captain Walsh's destroyer Falcon demonstrated this perfectly. Instead of trying to match the aliens' massive firepower, the Falcon's railguns fired metal slugs at incredible speed. The projectiles punched through Krek's shields like they weren't even there, tearing holes in the enemy ship's hulls. "Target their weapon systems," Walsh ordered his gunners. "Don't need to destroy them all. We just need to stop them from shooting." The Krek's fleet began to realize they were in trouble when their formations started breaking apart. Ships that had been moving in perfect lines suddenly found themselves surrounded by human fighters, their weapons damaged, their shields failing. Captain Stevens aboard the Thunder showed the Krek something they had never seen before: adaptive tactics. While the alien ships continued to follow the same attack patterns they had used for centuries, the Thunder constantly changed its approach. One moment it was attacking from above, the next it was striking from behind, using the wreckage of destroyed Krek ships as cover. "Commander Grant," Morrison called out over the battle noise, "execute Electronic Warfare Protocol 7. Grant's fingers flew over her console. "Initiating jamming sequence, Admiral." Suddenly, the Krek's fleet found itself blind and deaf. Their communications were filled with static, their sensors showed false targets, and their smart weapons began turning around to attack their own ships. Fleet Admiral Zexkar watched in growing horror as his mighty fleet was torn apart by an enemy a fraction of his size. "How is this possible? They have only 3 ships." His tactical officer, trembling with fear, pointed at the display screen. "Admiral, their fighters, ... they're everywhere. And their tactics, ... they keep changing. Every time we adapt to one strategy, they use a different one." The tide of battle truly turned when Captain Turner's Marines began boarding damaged Kreks vessels. The aliens discovered something that would haunt their nightmares for generations. Humans in combat armor were living weapons. Major Carroll, Lewis led the first boarding party onto a Krek's heavy cruiser. The alien crew that met them in the corridors were large, powerful beings with natural armor and claws. They should have been able to tear apart the smaller humans icily. Instead, they found themselves facing creatures that seemed to ignore pain, fear, and exhaustion. The humans moved through the ship like ghosts, appearing where they were least expected, striking hard and fast before disappearing again. "These beings are not natural," gasped a wounded Krek's warrior to his commander. "They fight in zero gravity, as if they were born in space. They breathe poison gas and fight in temperatures that would kill us. How can such creatures exist?" The answer was something the Kreks had never encountered: Humans were the products of a world that had spent millions of years trying to kill them. Every challenge that Earth had thrown at humanity had made them stronger, faster, more adaptable. They were survivors who had learned to turn every disadvantage into a weapon. Dr. Morgan, monitoring the battle from the Titan's medical bay, saw the reports coming in from the boarding parties. Admiral, the Krek's physiology is completely different from ours. They're adapted for their homeworld conditions, low gravity, clean atmosphere, stable temperatures. They've never had to deal with the kind of environmental challenges that shaped human evolution. Morrison nodded as he watched another Krek's dreadnought lose power and begin drifting helplessly. They're conquerors, Doctor, but they've only ever fought civilized species. They don't know how to handle predators. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it finally ended, over half the Krek's fleet was destroyed or disabled. The survivors limped away into deep space, broadcasting warnings about the terrifying new species they had encountered. Fleet Admiral Zexkar, his flagship heavily damaged and his fleet in ruins, sent one final transmission to Admiral Morrison. "Are you?" he demanded, his voice filled with a fear that the proud Kreks had never known before. Morrison's reply was heard throughout the galaxy as other species monitored the communications. "We're humans, Admiral. We're from a world where everything tries to kill you from the moment you're born. We learned a long time ago that the best defense is making sure your enemies can't hurt anyone ever again." The Kreks Empire had just learned what the galaxy would soon discover, that there are predators who hunt other predators, and humanity was the apex predator of them all. News of the battle at Zalara Prime spread across the galaxy faster than anyone had expected. Within days, every major civilization knew about the mysterious humans who had defeated the mighty Kreks Empire. With just 3 ships, the galaxy had never seen anything like it. On Earth, President Dan Cooper stood before the cameras in the Global Council chambers. Behind him, holographic displays showed star maps marking dozens of worlds that had been conquered by the Kreks over the past 500 years. His words would be broadcast to every corner of human space and beyond. "Citizens of Earth and all free peoples of the galaxy," Cooper began, his voice steady and strong. "Today, humanity officially declares war on the Kreks Empire. For too long, this brutal regime has terrorized peaceful worlds and enslaved innocent populations. No more." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "To any species currently under Kreks occupation, we offer you this promise. Humanity will fight alongside you to win back your freedom. To the Kreks Empire, we offer this warning. Surrender now or face the consequences of your crimes." Across the galaxy, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had been conquered decades ago began broadcasting messages to Earth, begging for help. The insectoid Vrak, whose industrial worlds had been stripped bare by Kreks mining operations, offered their manufacturing capabilities to the human war effort. The aquatic dolphins, master navigators whose ocean worlds had been poisoned by Kreks factories, shared their knowledge of hidden space routes. Admiral Morrison, now promoted to Supreme Allied Commander, stood on the bridge of the rebuilt Titan. As it led a fleet of over 50 ships toward the Proxima Sector, the fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human vessels working alongside alien designs, each species contributing their unique strengths to the common cause. Captain Turner, commanding a mixed squadron of human and Zilani ships, had proven to be a master of combined tactics. The peaceful Zilani had learned quickly under human training, their advanced sensors and energy shields complementing human weapons and armor perfectly. Admiral Commander Grant reported from her tactical station, "We're approaching the Proxima defense line. Sensors show at least 30 Kreks vessels guarding the system." Morrison studied the tactical display. The Kreks had learned from their defeat at Zalara Prime. Their ships were now arranged in defensive formations, using asteroids and space stations as cover. They were no longer underestimating humanity. "Captain Stevens, take your battle group around the far side of the asteroid field," Morrison ordered. "Captain Walsh, your destroyers will hit them from below."
"Captain Turner?"
"Your mixed squadron will attack head-on to draw their attention." The battle plan was simple, but effective. While the Kreks focused on Turner's obvious assault, the other human forces would strike from unexpected angles. It was a tactic as old as warfare itself, but the Kreks had never faced an enemy that used such strategies. The battle began exactly as Morrison had planned. Turner's ships charged straight at the Kreks' defensive line, their weapons blazing. Alien defenders concentrated their fire on what appeared to be the main attack, just as Morrison had hoped they would. That was when Stevens' heavy cruisers emerged from behind the largest asteroid, the railguns already firing. The Krek ships, caught completely off guard, found their rear formations under devastating attack. Before they could react, Walsh's destroyers struck from below, their fighters swarming over the confused enemy vessels. But this battle was different. From Zalera Prime, the Kreks had learned to adapt their tactics as well. When their defensive line began to crumble, they did something unexpected. They retreated in good order, fighting a running battle as they fell back toward their main base. Commander Sam Reed, leading a squadron of the newest human warships, pursued the retreating enemy. What he found in the inner system made him pause. The Kreks had turned an entire moon into a fortress, bristling with weapons and protected by energy shields that covered the entire surface. Admiral Morrison, Reed reported over the communication channel, "We've got a problem. They've fortified the moon of Proxima 4. I'm reading weapon emplacements that could destroy entire fleets." Morrison considered the situation. Direct assault on such a fortified position would cost thousands of lives, both human and alien. But there was another way, a way that only humans would think of. "All ships, withdraw to safe distance," Morrison ordered. "We're going to show the Kreks something they've never seen before." What happened next became legend throughout the galaxy. Instead of attacking the fortified moon, the human fleet began targeting the asteroids in the outer system. Using precise calculations and coordinated fire, they nudged the massive rocks onto collision courses with the Kreks' fortress. The aliens watched in growing horror as chunks of stone and metal, each weighing millions of tons, began raining down on their supposedly impregnable base. Their energy shields, designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, were useless against simple rocks moving at incredible speed. Within hours, the fortress that had taken the Kreks decades to build was reduced to rubble. The surviving defenders surrendered without firing another shot. Dr. Morgan, monitoring the psychological profiles of captured Kreks officers, made a disturbing discovery. "Admiral, we're seeing something we haven't encountered before. The Kreks' military structure is beginning to collapse. Their entire doctrine is based on overwhelming force and intimidation. When they can't terrorize their enemies into submission, they don't know how to fight." This became clear as the human-led alliance continued its advance through Krek space. Planet after planet fell to the combined forces, not through massive battles, but through the simple fact that the Kreks defenders no longer believed they could win. On the industrial world of Vrak 7, an entire Kreks garrison surrendered when a single human destroyer appeared in orbit. On the ocean world of Coral Prime, Kreks occupation forces fled when they received reports that human Marines were landing on the planet. Captain Lewis, General Lewis commanding the Allied Marine Corps, found herself accepting the surrender of Kreks armies that outnumbered her forces 10-1. The alien soldiers who had terrorized countless worlds were now afraid of humans who seemed to appear from nowhere and strike without warning. It's psychological warfare on a galactic scale, Morrison explained to President Cooper during one of their regular briefings. The Kreks built their empire on fear. Now they're the ones who are afraid. But the greatest shock came when long-range scouts reported that several Kreks-controlled worlds had declared independence on their own. Native populations that had been enslaved for decades were rising up against their oppressors. Inspired by news of human victories, the galaxy was watching. Humanity not just as conquerors, but as liberators. And the Kreks empire, which had seemed unstoppable for 5 centuries, was crumbling faster than anyone had thought possible. As Morrison stood on his bridge, watching another star system celebrate its freedom, he realized that the war was no longer about saving the Zalani. It had become about something much larger, showing the galaxy that bullies could be stopped, that the strong had a duty to protect the weak, and that sometimes the best way to ensure peace was to be very, very good at war. 1 year after Elder Thal's desperate distress call, Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Un's Titan as it approached Krexos Prime, the homeworld of the once mighty Krex Empire. Behind him stretched a fleet of over 3,000 ships, from 47 different species, all united under human command. The sight would have been impossible to imagine just months earlier. Sleek human destroyers flew alongside the organic curves of Zilani science vessels. Massive rack industrial ships carried supplies next to the graceful waterships of the Dolphin navigators. The galaxy had never seen such cooperation between different species. Admiral Captain Stevens reported from her position commanding the 3rd Battle Group. Long-range sensors are picking up the Krex home fleet. They're forming defensive positions around the planet. Morrison studied the tactical display that Commander Grant brought up on the main screen. Even after losing most of their empire, the Krex still had nearly 200 ships defending their homeworld. But these were not the confident conquerors who had attacked Zalara Prime. These were the desperate remnants of a broken empire. Captain Walsh Morrison called to his old friend, now commanding the Fast Attack Squadron. "What's your assessment?" Walsh's voice came through the speakers with the same calm confidence he had shown that first day when they had decided to answer the alien distress call. "Admiral, they're scared. Look at their formations. They're bunched together for mutual protection instead of spreading out to maximize their firepower. They're fighting not to win, but to avoid losing." Valthox himself appeared on the communication screens, his reptilian features twisted with desperation. The proud ruler, who had once commanded hundreds of worlds, now sat on a throne surrounded by the ruins of his palace, his empire reduced to a single star system. "Admiral Morrison," the Emperor began, his voice lacking the arrogance that had once defined the Krex leadership. "I offer you terms for peace. The Krex Empire will withdraw from all occupied territories. We'll pay tribute to your alliance. We'll never again expand beyond our home system. All we ask is to be left alone." Morrison looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were people who had traveled across the galaxy to answer the call of strangers. They had seen worlds burned by Krex weapons and populations enslaved by Krex greed. They had fought alongside aliens who had suffered under Krex rule for centuries. "Emperor Valthox," Morrison replied, his voice carrying across space to every ship in both fleets. "Unconditional surrender is the only terms we will accept. The Krex Empire ends." Today, the final battle was swift and decisive. The human-led alliance had learned to fight as one organism, each species contributing their unique abilities to a coordinated assault that the Krex could not match. General Lewis led the assault troops from a dozen different worlds in the final boarding actions against Krex ships. Human Marines fought alongside Zilani, technical specialists, and Vrak heavy weapons teams. The combination of human tactics, alien technology, and shared determination proved unstoppable. Captain Turner, commanding the rebuilt Zilani defense fleet, demonstrated how far the peaceful species had come under human training. The same aliens who had once known only science and exploration now flew their ships with the precision of veteran warriors. Striking at Krex weak points with surgical accuracy, Dr. Morgan, monitoring communications from the Krex fleet, watched as their military discipline completely collapsed. Ships began surrendering without firing a shot. Entire squadrons broke formation and fled toward the outer planets. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 5 centuries was dying not in glorious battle, but in chaos and fear. The end came when Emperor Valthox himself broadcast his surrender from the Krex homeworld. His voice, once filled with the arrogance of absolute power, now trembled with defeat. "The Krex Empire surrenders unconditionally to the human-led alliance. I order all Krex forces throughout the galaxy to lay down their weapons and submit to Allied authority." Morrison accepted the surrender aboard the Titan, with representatives from every Allied species present. The ceremony was broadcast across the galaxy, showing dozens of different life forms standing together in unity. But Morrison's thoughts were not on victory or conquest. He was thinking of Elder Thal's original message, the desperate plea for help that had started everything. "Elder Thal," Morrison said, opening a direct communication to Zalera Prime. The threat to your people is over. The Krex Empire no longer exists. The old Zalani's voice came through the speakers, filled with wonder and gratitude. Admiral Morrison, when we sent our distress call, we hoped that someone, somewhere in the galaxy, might have compassion for strangers. We never imagined that. Those strangers would become our saviors and our friends. Dr. Morgan stepped forward to address the assembled representatives. The defeat of the Krex Empire was inevitable the moment they threatened a species under human protection. The Krex made the fundamental error of believing that might makes right. They never understood that true strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. President Cooper, speaking from Earth to the Galactic Council, announced the formation of the Terran Defense Alliance. This organization will ensure that no species will ever again face the terror that the Krex Empire represented. Any world that asks for protection will receive it. Any aggressor that threatens peaceful peoples will face the consequences. The galaxy had been changed forever. Where once there had been hundreds of isolated species afraid to help each other, now there was an alliance based on mutual protection and shared values. Captain Walsh summed it up perfectly during the victory celebration aboard the Titan. We came out here to explore the stars and find our place in the galaxy. Instead, we found our purpose, protecting those who needed protection. As the human fleet prepared to disperse throughout the galaxy to establish the new peacekeeping force, Elder Thal sent one final message that would be remembered throughout galactic history. We called for help expecting to die with dignity. Instead, we learned that there are beings in the universe who will cross any distance and face any danger to help strangers in need. The galaxy is safer because the Deathworlders chose to be guardians instead of conquerors. The stars themselves seemed brighter as humanity took its place, not as rulers of the galaxy, but as its protectors. The species that had evolved on a world trying to kill them had become the galaxy's shield against those who would do harm to others. And in the depths of space, human ships continued their patrols, ensuring that no distress call would ever go unanswered again.